Welcome to How You Livin', a transformative podcast featuring best-selling author, inspirational speaker, and minister, Dr. Rick Rigsby. And now, Dr. Rick.
Hello, friends. Thanks so much for tuning in. I want to talk to you about letters, specifically the power of writing a letter. Do you remember how exciting it was to write a letter when we were kids? Oh, I remember our teacher giving us some instructions. We'd write the letter, then we'd send it to either our parents or our grandparents. I chose my mama, my grandmother. She lived way far away in Texas, and I was in Northern California. We only saw her once a year. And so the teacher would give us that simple letter writing formula. Remember? It went like this for me. Dear Mama, how are you? I am fine. I am being a good boy. I hope I see you this summer. I always have fun at your house. I miss you. Love, Ricky. Simple declarative statements. Nothing fancy. A subject and a verb. And then we'd ask our mom for a postage stamp. Hey, friends, just for kicks and giggles, back when I was in second grade, back in 1962, a first-class stamp was 5 cents. Today, 2022, 58 cents for the same first-class stamp. My penmanship also had to be perfect. I'd go through 4 or 5 envelopes, just trying to make sure that I could write clearly or that my cursive could be clearly understood. I had to get Mama's name and address just so. And then I had this really big choice. I could either place the letter in my mailbox for the postman to pick up, or I could walk all the way to the end of the block and put the letter into one of those big blue mailboxes. I chose the latter. There was nothing like skipping all the way down to the end of the block with a letter that you wrote, a letter that you addressed, that was going to your grandmother far, far away, and you had the opportunity to mail it. By the way, friends, whatever happened to those blue mailboxes? When I was a kid, they were on every block. They've all but vanished today, apparently the result of a decline in letter writing. And my mama, she'd get those letters and treasure them, especially from all of her grandchildren. But the big thrill came a few weeks later when my mother would announce, Ricky, you have a letter. It's from Mama. Friends, if you're old enough, you'll remember how exciting it was to receive a personal letter. I remember reading every word on the envelope. Ricky Rigsby, 1141 Louisiana Street, Vallejo, California, 94590. I would even marvel over the postmark. There was nothing like getting a letter that was addressed to you, that was written for you. My father would also send me letters. He was always away from home, typically 3 months out of every year for my entire childhood. My dad was a cook at California Maritime Academy, a college that to this very day prepares men and women for careers in the maritime industry. Dad sailed annually on the training ship Golden Bear, cruises designed to give cadets valuable experience and to make them sea ready. Back then, when Dad was at sea, we could only communicate with him 2 ways, either via ham radio, which was always exciting, especially ending each sentence with, over, or we could communicate via the mail, which was tricky since the ship was constantly on the move and in a different port every week. But somehow, with a little planning, the mail would eventually catch up with the ship. I recall one critical piece of mail that was more important than perhaps any other mail that I sent my dad when he was at sea. I can even tell you the month and the year, February 1972. That was the year I turned 16 years of age. Here was the deal. I had to mail my father my report card in order for my father to sign off on me getting my driver's license. Although I sweated a few weeks, all went well. Getting my dad's letters, though, getting those postcards from various ports of call throughout the world, priceless. Sadly, when I got to high school, I no longer found it cool to write my dad, something I deeply regret today. When I went to college, writing home was fun, especially to Mom. I'll never forget buying that stationery they sell at the college bookstores with the printed university letterhead. Parents love that kind of stuff. But guess what else about college? College also meant falling in love. Come on, somebody. You see, I went to college in the 70s. Now, that predated email, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, cell phones, everything. We didn't even have an ATM machine. If you didn't make it to the local bank by 3 o'clock on Friday, you were cashless for the entire weekend. And boy, do I remember those letters from girlfriends during Christmas and summer breaks. The stationery was scented with perfume. There was a wax seal on the back of the envelope. I'd read those letters over and over and over again. Even today, when I get a handwritten letter or a note from my wife or from family or friends, I'll read it 2 or 3 times, always feeling valued that someone took the time to write. Always feeling valued that someone took the time to write. You see, letter writing has become a lost art in our digital communicative age, but it doesn't have to be. I'll never forget one day giving a speech and talking to a gentleman that just happened to be one of the top salespersons for this company. And he told me that writing a personal note to clients was the key to his success. Alexa Erickson would agree. She wrote a piece on letter writing published on the website marthastewart.com. Alexa stated that a handwritten letter can convey what technology simply cannot. From the choice of stationery to ink color to the type of stamp you select to word selection, all these things communicate strong messages. Alexa offered several reasons to reconnect back to the art of letter writing. Among them, Alexa says handwritten letters are personal. They're innately human. Handwritten letters allow expressions of creativity. They communicate immense value. They force us to slow down. The process of writing a letter forces us to slow it a bit. We take our eyes off a computer screen. We use our brains in a new way that requires attention and focus and thoughtfulness. Alexa also noted that letters are historical artifacts. They have a life of their own, a recorded history. They become cherished and valued throughout the years. We didn't even mind waiting for a return letter. It gave us something to look forward to, like receiving the Sears catalog in the summer. For the most part, the art of letter writing has given way to speed and immediacy. We even have a term in pop culture for letters mailed these days: snail mail. The term was likely started by Jim Rutt back in 1981. Rutt was the CEO of a company called Network Solutions, who reportedly predicted that electronic mail would make all the other correspondence feel like snail mail. Rutt was correct. But what cannot be replicated by digital messages is the human touch of carefully chosen words, the feeling of opening and reading a personal letter meant just for you, the piece of history that you don't ever want to discard, or how valued you feel that someone took time to write. A handwritten letter can convey what technology simply cannot. And we ought to think about that from time to time. Right now, I bet you thinking about someone that's on your mind, someone that you've been wanting to communicate with for a while. Why not today? You see, friends, I've been thinking about letter writing lately, the result likely of reading a book by the 41st President of the United States of America, George Herbert Walker Bush. The book is titled All the Best: My Life in Letters and Other Writings, and I highly recommend it. Although his wife Barbara wrote a best-selling memoir, President Bush was reluctant to write an autobiography. He did, however, collaborate with his former National Security Advisor Brent Scowcroft on a book about historical changes during his presidency. But friends and colleagues convinced Bush that the general public really didn't know him. The president said what was missing was deeper insight into my heartbeat, my values, and what motivated me throughout my life. The idea took off when someone said, "Mr. President, you've already written a book," referring to a lifetime of letters that George Bush had written. Aides began digging through endless boxes of letters, notes, cards, diaries. They started listening to audio tapes. Now, all of this stuff is archived at the George Bush Presidential Library on the campus of Texas A&M University. in College Station. The reader begins by reading his book with letters to George Bush's parents during World War II, where Lieutenant Bush was one of the youngest aviators in the Navy. Throughout his courtship and marriage to Barbara Pierce, throughout his career as a Texas oilman and his life in politics, from a seat in Congress to the highest elected position in our nation, President Bush corresponded with family, friends, and colleagues all along the journey. The letters spanned a time period of nearly 60 years. Some of the letters, according to President Bush, are serious, some are nutty, some are caring, some are rejoicing. All were written when the president was either heavy in heart or filled with joy. I found every one of the letters to be fascinating. I love this quote from President Bush. He said, quote, "This book is not meant to be an autobiography, but hopefully it will let you have a look at what's on the mind of an 18-year-old kid who goes into the Navy and then at 19 is flying a torpedo bomber off an aircraft carrier in World War II, or what runs through the mind of a person living in China, halfway around the world from friends and family, or to what a president is thinking when he has to send someone else's son or daughter into combat. It's all about heartbeat," end quote. For me, the most precious letters are those to his grandchildren. Here's just a couple of snapshots. February 16th, 1984. Mr. Bush was vice president when he wrote to his granddaughter Jenna, the daughter of President George W. Bush. He wrote, "Dear Jenna, we love you so much. I just wish your mom and dad would let you come stay with us here in Washington. I would come home early from the office. We three could play and do fun stuff." I love that. But this one got me. February 7th, 1989, just 1 month after being sworn in as president, George Bush wrote a letter to his son Neil's new baby daughter, Ashley. Grandpa Bush, known as Gampy, wrote Ashley on the very day she was born. The letter went like this. "Dear Ashley, on this, the first day of your life, your old grandfather sends you his love. Today was the day after my savings and loan proposal, the day of my visit to Capitol Hill to see a lot of Congress members, 2 days before my speech to the nation. But on this day, the day of your birth, I'm thinking of you." Wow. Friends, can you just imagine what that letter means to Ashley? What that letter means to Jenna? You see, rediscovering the lost art of letter writing has so many advantages. It keeps us connected to family and to friends and colleagues. It communicates unspeakable value, and it's just plain gratifying to both send and receive something that becomes a historical record, part of the history of our life. Is someone coming to mind yet? I think about all the time, all the opportunities I've missed to connect with someone, that person who has been on my mind. Why not take advantage of that opportunity? This week, why not get your favorite pen, select a nice piece of stationery, look up an address, buy a first-class stamp, and send that person a priceless keepsake, something they may cherish for the rest of their lives. Well, that's going to do it for this episode, friends. Until we meet again, this is Dr. Rick, asking the most important question I can ask. How you living?
Are you ready to make an impact in your world right now? Do you want to stop existing and start living your best life right now? Dr. Rick wants to give you the first chapter of his best-selling book, Lessons from a Third Grade Dropout, absolutely free. Just go to www.rickrigsby.com/free gift to get the print or audiobook right now.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.